You know what I haven't discussed in a long time? A truly awful season. So I've been looking through my playlists, and truly awful seasons. I currently have seven. This will be the eighth. Great seasons without a cup. I'm at four. I do need to get back to that and talk about some great seasons without a cup. Because again, playlists are great, but you gotta change things up a little bit and not do the same thing every day, or people are like, yeah, I've already seen this. So we haven't done a truly awful season in a while, and I thought the 83-84 Penguins would be an interesting one. Now, at the time they wore this jersey, which was from 77 through 1980, things weren't that bad, but as we got into the 80s, they were that bad. The 83-84 team had a simple job: get Mario Lemieux. They were playing in kind of an outdated arena. They weren't drawing fans. They were losing money right, left, and center. And it was pretty clear. Lose games. Lose them big if you have to. Don't win. And the trick they had was they had a division rival who was also miserable, the New Jersey Devils. So I've already done a lot of videos on New Jersey Devils. They had a truly awful season during this season as well. It was different than Pittsburgh's because Pittsburgh's was kind of by design. So we talk a lot about teams intentionally tanking. And there's a lot of people that will say, well, they automatically, or they intentionally tanked so they could get Ovechkin that year. And then, of course, that pick goes to Washington, but they get Malkin. And it was all planned. Nah, Pittsburgh didn't have a plan. That was just mismanagement, horrible trades, and some really bad decisions that were made. And Mario Lemieux had to come in and save the team as the owner, or else they could be the Hamilton Penguins or some other Penguins altogether. They could have ended up in a number of locations. Could end up in Portland. So, with all that in mind, Mario came in to save the franchise in 1984 after what was an absolutely miserable season. But what's easy to forget is they weren't any good in 82-83 either. So it's not like they had a team that was 500. They had a team that had been miserably bad. They were 21st in the league that year. They were in danger of folding coming out of that season. They were 18-53-9. That's 45 points. 257 goals scored and 394 allowed. So it was miserable going into that year. But GM Eddie Johnston, he wanted that number one pick, Mario Lemieux. No offense to Kirk Muller, but that number one pick was seen as something that could save the team. And Lou Angotti, who was the coach at the time, or Lou Angotti at the time, I don't know, Angotti, I'll go with Angotti. It doesn't really matter. He didn't stick around for very long after either. He was just kind of the sacrificial lamb, which you look at Jeff Blashill, and that could end up being what it is with the trade either. Like, well, thanks for helping us lose a bunch of games, and all right, we got Lafreniere or we got Lastutzla now. All right, we're going to get a new coach. And that definitely happens where a coach is kind of dead man walking behind the bench. You're just supposed to get him losses. Don't worry about it. When we want to be good, we'll go get the other guy. But for right now, you're fine. Pittsburgh, it took them a while, and it's worthy of note here that after getting Mario, it took them a while to get good again, too. So while this season is looked at as, hey, this is what got them Mario and saved the team, it still took them a while to get any good. The season after this, they finished with a record of 24-51-5, 276 goals for, 385 goals against. So yeah, they scored more goals, but they still allowed almost the exact same amount. So 83-84, they scored 254 goals, which was 20th in the NHL. They allowed 390, which was worst. And it was, again, by design. And there were certain little things that got done to make sure they'd stay worst. And I saw Buffalo do some of this stuff back in 2015, which to me seemed kind of obvious. But much like Pittsburgh, they were already a bad team. It's not like Buffalo would have won the Cup in 2015 and they were just trying to get a McDavid pick. This was a team that understood, hey, we're bad. We need to be really, really bad, though. So it starts off in October with them 3-9. Playoffs are already out of their minds. They go 3-7-3 in November, 3-8-2 in December. As bad as those months are, those are their best months. January, they're 1-11. February, they're 3-10-1. March, they're 3-12. And in April, they lost the only game they played. They finished their final 6 games with losses in all 6, and they lost by a combined score of 36-15. They were allowing 6 goals a game over those last 6 games. Mario, Mario, Mario. Like, by that point, they knew they were going to get Mario Lemieux. This is well before we had a draft lottery. This is part of the reason why we have a draft lottery. And I've seen people say, it's not really fair. The worst team in the league should get the number one pick. I agree, but it was years like this that just made it look like a joke. They were 0-7 at home in October. So if you went to a Pittsburgh Penguins game in 1983, the month of October, you had a pretty easy time getting a ticket. I'm guessing it was a pretty cheap ticket, and you watched them get killed. These were things that happened if you were a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins back then, as I was. I was a fan of Randy Carlyle and of Rick Kehoe, and this was kind of the beginning of the end for both. Now, their leading scorer was Mike Bullard, 51 goals, 41 assists, 92 points. That 51 goals was a career high, and he appeared to be trying. He appeared to be the one guy on that team that was like, you know what, to heck with this, I'm going to give it everything I've got. He scores 50 goals. Doug Shedden, 22 goals, 35 assists, 57 points. He was a decent player as well. Mark Taylor, 24 goals, 31 assists, 55 points. He was added in a trade. Flockhart was as well, 27 goals, 18 assists, 45 points. So that's 4 20-goal scorers, and one of them with 50. They had guys that could score, but again, you look at the overall numbers, they were still 20th in the NHL with 254 goals. This is during the 80s, where you had a lot of goals being scored. Rick Kehoe, actually, I've got him in here twice. I don't need him on here twice. I don't know why I like Rick Kehoe so much, I put him up here twice. 18 goals, 47 assists, or 18 goals, 27 assists, 45 points, 57 games played. He was shut down after that 57th game. He was having circulatory issues due to a pinched nerve, and that would end his career. He'd play 6 games the following season, and that was the end of it for him. Pat Boutette had 14 goals, 26 assists, 40 points. Andy Brickley, after a trade, 18 goals, 20 assists, 38 points for Brickley. And Randy Carlyle had 3 goals, 23 assists, 26 points for the Pittsburgh Penguins before he's shipped to Winnipeg for a number 1 draft pick. First round pick from the Jets, which was, I think, 14th overall, and it became Mo Mantha. Nothing says tanking like taking your best defenseman and trading him away. All right, we're going to send him over there. And they also made a trade with Vancouver to trade a 3rd-round draft pick for Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy going to Pittsburgh to fill in for that spot vacated by Carlyle. Now, I was a Kevin McCarthy fan at the time. He was not Randy Carlyle. So it was weird. Here was a team that was already really bad, and they're like, that Carlyle guy on the blue line, he's pretty good. We should probably trade him. And that was a real sign that they were bound and determined. Well, the New Jersey Devils are complaining. The New Jersey Devils at this time are saying, look, we're legit bad. We're bad. We need that number 1 draft pick. Pittsburgh's making themselves appreciably worse while we're actually out there trying. We're just bad. So, yeah, they weren't happy about things. And when you think about it, if these guys win 2 more games, they get 42 points. New Jersey had 41 on the season. New Jersey would have drafted Mario Lemieux. How different would hockey history have played out if Mario Lemieux goes to New Jersey? There are what-if pages and articles all about that exact thing. Now, their goaltending was awful. This was absolutely abysmal, and they wanted to make it worse. They did. So, Denny Herron, 8-24-2 with an .884 save percentage. Past his prime at this stage, and playing behind a really bad team. So, Denny Herron, doing the best he can with what he's behind, and he had the best numbers by a good stretch. Roberto Romano, 6-11, .876 save percentage. That's not a bad winning percentage. So you have to send him to the American League because you need to lose games, and he's winning just a little bit too much. Now, save percentage is low, which is great, but he's still winning his games a little more than he should. Michele Diaw had a 2-19-4 record. Of course, Michele Diaw is remembered for having great masks as a member of the Penguins. Not necessarily a great goaltender for the Penguins. .852 save percentage for Dion. And Vincent Tremblay was brought up. 0-4 with an .830 save percentage. In his 4 starts, he allowed 24 goals. That's 6 per game, boys and girls. And they sent Romano down to bring up Tremblay for Mario Lemieux reasons. They wanted 66. They had to get 66. And that meant taking Romano, a young goaltender they were high on at the time, and shipping him to the minors. Their overall record, 16-58-6. The team's save percentage was 869. So you see Heron was well above that save percentage. The effort was there. Bullard well above the other scorers. His effort was there. Carlisle's effort was there, so he got sent to Winnipeg so you could bring in Kevin McCarthy and just watch an overall erosion of that defense. And after Carlisle left, if you look at charts and graphs from that time, the defense got appreciably worse. And it wasn't a good defense to start with, but when you move out Carlisle, it just makes it that much worse, which is what they were going for. Now, GM Eddie Johnston, I can't find anything where he's actually admitted to tanking. But, yeah, the former coach certainly has. He's admitted in interviews. Yeah, no, we tanked. To the point where, against the New York Rangers, Eddie Johnston storms into the coach's office after the first period to complain about the fact they had a 3-1 lead. They lost the game 6-3. So, there were some complaints from the GM when they'd be winning games. Romano, of course, being demoted, Tremblay promoted, and that's why. Because Tremblay was the worst goaltender. So, we'll bring up Tremblay. Tremblay had, I'm pretty sure had started out for the Toronto Maple Leafs and ended up in the American Hockey League. You know, and again, it's not a measure of effort, it's a measure of talent, and so Tremblay comes up, probably tries his best. Sort of like Buffalo when they brought in Anders Lindback because he had the worst save percentage in the league. That was my theory at the time was, they're getting, the goaltending's doing too well right now. I got to bring in Lindback and tank some. And then Lindback gave actually pretty solid numbers to the Buffalo Sabres, probably realizing what was going on there. Now, again, the team's in danger of folding, and without Mario Lemieux, they probably do. They either end up folding or they end up moving. And this was at a time where the NHL was in pretty good financial shape, nowhere near what it is now. So it's not like there would have been a whole lot of cities knocking doors down to try to get an NHL team if it were available, although Saskatoon had tried the year before. So it's possible that if Pittsburgh fails, Saskatoon could have said, we tried taking the Blues, and you said, no, can we have the Penguins? And the NHL might have been left in a position saying, we don't have much choice. So we might have seen the Saskatoon Penguins, which works. It's really cold in Saskatoon. There aren't any Penguins native to the area of Pittsburgh, so it works for Saskatoon as well. But yeah, this was a miserable season kind of by design. But it didn't make it easier to follow if you were a Devils fan, because the Devils were legitimately terrible. 41 points terrible. And of course, we remember that they picked up Mario Lemieux out of that. Mario didn't make them a lot better the first year. They didn't get better until years later. And it would involve that trade with Ron Francis, Larry Murphy, and then Tocchet comes in the year after. It was some smart moves after that made Pittsburgh better. It was the right decision to tank the season, but it didn't make it easier to watch along the way. So there you go. The Pittsburgh Penguins, the latest addition to truly awful seasons. And Mo Mantha was the return for Randy Carlyle. Mantha actually ended up being a pretty decent offensive defenseman. So, that's a trade that you could argue over the length of time ends up being at least even. This was a pretty bad team that management made sure got continually worse. We need that number 1 draft pick. And so when people say, well, why have a draft lottery? Just, the worst team should get the number 1 pick. New Jersey fans will say this is why we can't have nice things. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And remember, during this time, stay home where you can. Stay safe when you can't. And wash your hands. Stay nice and clean as much as you can. That's good advice at all times anyways. But hey, thank you guys again for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.